Welcome back to our channel. On today's video, we're going to be looking at the top 10 least affordable cities in Florida for 2024. Thank you for clicking on my video and not the world according to Briggs. Affordability in Florida is a concern for a lot of people, and today we're going to find out which 10 cities or areas have the most unrealistic entry-level prices. We looked at all of the most expensive real estate markets in Florida, and then we found what the most affordable house you could buy in that city was. The most affordable inhabitable house. So if you are considering moving to one of these top 10 cities on this list, you'll have an idea how much money you'll need from the get-go. I'm sure you're gonna miss your rich grandparents, but now that they're gone, let's figure out how much that inheritance will get you in the state of Florida. And sure guys, I grew up in Naples, Florida, but I'm not one of these rich snobs. Sure, I live in a gated community, and yeah, I go on golf courses with my buddies, but that doesn't make me a rich snob, does it? And I don't look down on other people's cities because they're not as great as Naples where I'm from, right? I don't look at myself as a rich snob. I look at myself as a modest, reasonable snob. Not every real estate market is a luxury market. According to the Realtors Association of some crap my wife gets in the mail every month, because she's a realtor, only these markets in Florida are actually luxury markets. Because there's always somebody that lives in butthole Florida who thinks because the neighbors across the street bought a new car that they live in a luxury market. No, you don't. These are the luxury markets in Florida. Fort Lauderdale, Naples, and Palm Beach have the most expensive luxury markets. Now, what makes a home a luxury home depends on a bunch of crap, but basically Tampa, Florida has the most affordable luxury market. For example, if you buy a $4 million house in Naples, Florida, it's $4 million, but it's not a luxury home. It's just a simple regular home. Now pay attention here so you understand today's video. Fort Lauderdale, Florida is one of the most expensive luxury markets in the entire state of Florida. That means there's a lot of very expensive real estate in Fort Lauderdale. But there's also a lot of affordable real estate in Fort Lauderdale. Now these are the types of places where Kodak Black and Jackboy filmed their music videos. Highlighted in green, you can see that Orlando and coastal Pinellas County have 15 days on the market. That means that these markets are moving very fast. However, Marco Island, houses are sitting on the market for a lot longer. All right, now that we understand this information, let's see how far your money can go in these top 10 most unaffordable Florida cities. Number 10 is Naples, Florida. You're going to need at least $589,000 to start looking for a home in the Naples area. And that's not within Naples city limits. That's just somewhere near Naples. An outdated home in the Ponciana neighborhood will put you at around $589,000. Ponciana is about an average neighborhood. It's not luxury, it's not fancy, it's just a decent place to live. Now, for about $450,000, you can buy a house in the hood that recently flooded because of hurricane storm surge. But we're going to bypass properties like this as our starting point and look for properties that look like they're at least inhabitable. Because there's always somebody on Royal Cove who will say something like, "Oh man, dawg, I bought a trailer for $200,000, dawg." Yeah, if you live in an aluminum can, that doesn't really count as a house. We're talking about inhabitable single-family homes. That's the starting point for today's video. I can already see somebody sending me the link to a trailer in Bayshore and saying, "Oh, here, you can live in Naples for $200,000. I'm like, yeah, you can live in a trailer, but I'm a moderate snob. I have to live in a single-family home. Number 9 is Cutler Bay, Florida. The starting point here is $625,000. Now, we're not going to include every single suburb and every single island on this list. We want to keep this list reasonable and comprehensive. Most of the top 10 lists of the most expensive real estate markets in Florida are just going to be 10 islands outside of Miami that for some reason or another happen to be considered a city. So understand that this list is a little bit more reasonable than that. Our list today is objective, reasonable, comprehensive, and purposeful.
But Jose, the world according to Briggs, he goes by nothing but pure analyticals.
For $625,000, you can find a livable, decent home in Cutler Bay and enjoy all the luxuries like living near Miami and being stuck on Dixie Highway for hours on end. Cutler Bay is 64% Hispanic and it has one of the highest incomes in the state of Florida. It's a pretty nice area as long as you stay east of US 1. It's about 10% black and 20% white, and it is in fact one of the best places you can live in Florida if you can afford it. The population is approaching 50,000 people, so even though it's a suburb, it's got a pretty good sized population. Number 8 is Key Largo, Key West, basically anything in the Florida Keys. You're going to need at least $635,000 to find a single family home in the Florida Keys. Now, if you don't mind, to stick to the goal and the intent of our video, we're going to be grouping the Florida Keys into one. After all, prices are pretty uniform all the way through the Florida Keys. Living in the Florida Keys is one of the best places to live if you're retired and you love nature. One of the downsides of living in the Florida Keys is how incommunicated it is from an infrastructure standpoint. Evacuations are common here because of hurricanes. There's only one way on and off the islands. And whether the hurricanes go into the Gulf of Mexico or up the East Coast, it seems like most hurricanes are going to affect the Keys in some way or another. It's more of a retirement destination for people with a lot of money and a horrible place to live if you don't have money and need to depend on the local economy for income. It's seasonally based on tourism, which means that the locals here who depend on a regular job are not doing very well. Now, you could live on Stock Island with 500 cockroaches and charge them $2 a piece for rent, and maybe that way you could be able to afford to live near Key West, but for all practical purposes, even a very simple, modest home on Key West will run you about $750,000. Somewhere else, like Key Largo, for $635,000, you can get a nice little home. Life on the Florida Keys can be amazing, but it also can have a lot of challenges. It's better fitted for a great vacation and not so much for full-time living. But if you do choose to live here full-time, you're going to find that real estate prices are absolutely abnormal and that you're going to have to deal with stupid, dumb tourists like me and my wife making YouTube videos while you're trying to go on with your day-to-day life. And I want to make the observation that the regular working class people that I have met in the Florida Keys definitely don't seem happy. You would think that these would be the happiest people in the world living on this tropical island, but they're really not. There's no jobs, incomes are very hard to find, and everyday items are priced as if they were catered to tourists, not the locals, which means even buying a bottle of water at a gas station can be more than twice what you would pay somewhere else. We can say that the real estate prices in the Florida Keys are just the starting point of how expensive life will get on these islands. Number 7 is beautiful Marco Island, Florida, right outside of Naples. To live on this beautiful island, you're going to need at least $700,000. The island is safe, secluded, has beautiful beaches, warm weather even in the coldest days since it's way at the bottom of South Florida. If you want to enjoy year-round fishing as well as boating activities, you couldn't ask for a better place than Marco Island. Even a very modest home will set you back about $700,000 on Marco Island, and you can find condos for a little bit less. Despite close calls with hurricanes, Marco Island has a reputation of standing up very well to these powerful storms. A lot of these are second homes, people that come down to snowbird, so it's reasonable that the real estate market here isn't going to be as fast as in other places. Number 6 is Southwest Ranches. This is a suburb outside of Fort Lauderdale where you can get a lot of acreage. Buying a home here will put you at around $990,000. Land in Southeast Florida is not exactly cheap, So buying so much land out here is definitely going to come at a premium. Living in Southwest Ranches, you are conveniently located next to Miami and Fort Lauderdale, so you can't complain about that.
Unless you've been watching Fox News, and then there's all types of horrible things you could say, Jose.
Number 5 is Coral Gables, Florida. At $998,000, you can find yourself a cute little home in Coral Gables. I know that price tag seems very expensive, but I will be honest, if I could afford this price range, I would love to live in Coral Gables. It really is the most beautiful city in Florida. Unless, of course, you've been watching Fox News. In that case,
it's full of illegals, Jose. And eagles represent America, Jose, but these are illegals. They're eagles that are sick, Jose.
Hispanics account for almost 60% of the population in Coral Gables. The median household income here is $113,000, which is about 2 times higher than the rest of Miami-Dade County. 40% of the population is foreign-born. Just think about that. Costs $1 million to buy a house here, but 40% of the people living here were born somewhere else.
But Jose, Fox News said that immigrants were destroying America.
Yeah, they sure did. They lie to you all the time, Billy. Billy, you gotta stop smoking that tobacco stuff. It's really taking a toll on you, buddy.
Jose, it's made in it's made in America. It's made in America.
Number 4 is Fort Meyers Beach, Florida. For $1.1 million, you can get yourself a home right in the heart of post-apocalyptic hurricane destruction. As we saw with the luxury real estate report, in volume, Lee County, Florida is one of the largest real estate markets in the entire state of Florida for luxury properties, most of which are along the coast. Bringing relief and comfort to most people in Lee County, Florida, a vast majority of Lee County's most expensive real estate was just about wiped out by the hurricane.
They deserve it, Jose.
So if you had $1.1 million and you were willing to spend it on a home, you too could enjoy living on Fort Myers Beach. For $639,000, you can get your own little place on Sanibel Island and enjoy the Lee County coastline. Looks like a good project there. Now, if you got $3.9 million, you can get yourself a 1,600 square foot home on Boca Grande. So if you really want to move to a destroyed and very unaffordable area, consider the coast of Lee County, Florida, where you can be on the beach and watch an entire car float by, because that's still happening. There are still entire cars in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico floating around. True, they've cleaned up most of the hurricane destruction, but I still think that the process has been awfully slow. And even if they're able to fix the houses and buildings on the island, which is taking a lot longer than it should have in my personal opinion, the ecological damage that this area suffered is probably more like decades, if not centuries, to repair. The water clarity has not came back since Hurricane Ian. I personally would not be in a rush to buy any real estate in coastal Lee County. It looks like the ecological damage here is going to take at least decades to repair. And on top of the ecological damage, the people that were living on this island before the hurricane were some of the rudest, nastiest people I've ever dealt with my entire life. And I worked on this island quite a bit. I think the whole entire world got to see these people's antics after the hurricane, so there's no need to elaborate on that part. Number 3 is Pinecrest, Florida. For $1.149, you can get yourself a livable, decent home in this beautiful area south of Miami. The household income here is over $105,000, and about 42% of the population is Hispanic. I actually worked in this city for a little bit, and it was a very enjoyable experience as long as you stayed east of US 1. There's definitely proximity between the haves and the have-nots in this part of Florida. I guess if you want to live in a beautiful, decent part of Miami, it's not going to come affordably. And traffic on US 1 Dixie Highway in this part is unbearable. You have no idea how bad it gets. It's like not quite as bad as Los Angeles, but it's definitely not a fun drive. Did I mention there's no beaches here? There's just a coastline, but it's still ridiculously expensive. But on a cold winter day, this is one of the warmest places in the entire continental United States, with large banyan trees, beautiful natural settings, and of course beautiful limestone rocks decorating walls and older homes in the area. It really is an absolutely gorgeous area if you can afford it. If you stick to good mom and pop places, eating out in this part of Miami is very affordable despite the fact it's a rich area. A lot of people invest in this area of Miami because income analytics are very high, but let me just warn you, it's a very difficult place to do business. You have people from a lot of different nationalities and they all do business in a different way. I personally struggled. Number 2 is Miami Beach, Florida. $1,150,000 is the bottom entry level to get yourself a home in the Miami Beach area. I saw another top 10 list on the internet before I did the research for this video, and it was a complete mess. 7 out of the 10 listings were other islands adjacent to Miami Beach that just happened to be their own cities, even though they were very small places. That to me seems like an absurd way to go about making a top 10 list. Clearly, the unaffordable area is Miami Beach, and of course any adjacent islands are going to have similar price ranges. Living full-time on Miami Beach isn't exactly for everyone, but if you're young and you want that type of lifestyle and you have that kind of money, hey, go for it. Number 1 is Palm Beach, Florida. $4.2 million is roughly the starting point to get yourself on this particular island. And I'm not talking about West Palm Beach, I'm talking about Palm Beach, the actual island. Imagine paying $4.2 million to buy a house in Florida and it looks like it's got window shakers instead of central air conditioning. But that should just give you an idea what type of money you need to live on this island. What is this guy, the Pirate of Hialeah or something? But realistically, I mean, how do you even get that much money? Like, what do you convince a bunch of poor people to give you their money? Like a big businessman from New York City convinces a bunch of poor hicks that they should give him like millions of donations because he needs more money. I guess you'd have to be a real scumbag to have that kind of money, because I can't legitimately think of how somebody could just have $50 million laying around for a house. I have never met a single soul that I genuinely like in this place. Katie, don't you have some rich uncle that lives over here?
Jose, do not include me.
I'm sorry. Katie's got like some rich white people that she's related to that live over here, but yeah, sorry baby. Well, none of my Cuban family members have a house on Palm Beach, but Katie over here on the other hand,
enough.
I'm sorry. Alright guys, those are the top 10 most unaffordable markets to enter in the state of Florida. Do you think there's somewhere else in Florida that is also ridiculously unaffordable that belonged on today's list? Let me know. And I don't want to hear about some stupid little island with 300 people that happens to be its own city. That doesn't count, doesn't make sense to list it on here. I've heard like the most rich gangster dude that lives on this island is actually a Cuban that owns all the sugar plantations like way out on the other side of Palm Beach County. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I hear he's like the top dog in Palm Beach County. Like, it's not really Donald Trump who runs crap. It's like some Cuban that owns a bunch of like land out there and burns sugar cane, and it's probably the reason I can't breathe. And it's probably the reason there's a bunch of dead fish in the Gulf as well. I wish I had that kind of money where I could just like destroy an entire state and like nobody say anything to me because they know I'm like too gangster to mess with. You know, wouldn't that be like the coolest thing ever? You could just like destroy your entire state, like red tide, smoke all in the air, and like the whole state's like suffering and dying, and you're over here like on Palm Beach like, well, the wind's blowing the other way, not my problem. Dang Cubans.
Now that's what I'm talking about right there, Jose. That's what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, man. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, man. You know what I'm talking about, man. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.